Hello, Tracy here with another scrapbooking process video. Today I'm using the Cherry Pie kit from the Scraptastic Kit Club and the add-on as well, which is the April 2016 kit. And this layout is also being used as part of our National Scrapbooking Day crop. I have a cut file here from Just Nick Studio, and it is called Shattered Circle Background. And if you're participating in our National Scrapbooking Day crop, you can access this free until May 16th. Check out the link below for information on how to do that. So I have cut it up at just under 12 inches. I'm not entirely sure. I kind of eyeballed it. I wanted to have some pattern paper showing all the way around it, but I wanted it to mostly fill a 12 by 12 page. I'm just having a look at all of the pattern paper that came in the Cherry Pie kit. And I'm not going to even look at the cardstock because I'm pretty sure I'm not going to use it. So now what I'm thinking at first, and my whole reason for cutting this cut file, was that I would do a patchwork pieced together quilted kind of a look like I've been doing lately on some of my backgrounds. If you check out my Headley page and a couple of pages from Crop and Create that I made, you will see some examples of me using a cut file and then piecing together paper on the back of it to make a really detailed, beautiful background. And so today I decided to do something a little bit different. So I'm going to mount this entirely on one piece of pattern paper. And so it's that Life in Color paper there from Simple Stories. And I just used my pen and went all the way around the outside of that cut file. And then as I cut it, I'm cutting it just a smidgen smaller than that, just to make it a little bit easier for me to overlap the two of them so that there's none of the pattern paper sticking out on any of the edges. But I certainly want to make sure that the inside holes are all completely filled. So one thing that I really love about this Shattered Circle background cut file is that it has those two large pieces that are filled in, and I'm trying to incorporate that in my design. I'm thinking I'm going to pop the cut file up off of the pattern paper, and I'm going to use that heart paper from Ellie's Studio from the Little Moments collection as my background. So that's my main idea. But I'm feeling like it's an awful lot of white. So I'm going to do a watercolor technique. I'm really into watercolor these days. I have several different types of watercolors that I like to use. But before I use watercolor on a piece of plain cardstock, I've decided to gesso it just to make it hold up a little bit better to all of the water that I plan to use. Because I am going to be using a particularly watery watercolor medium today. So I just got a foam brush and I am spreading some gesso fairly thick on this layout, a fairly thick coat of gesso, and just spreading it out as evenly as I can and making sure that I have every surface covered. And now I'm just going to close up my gesso, and I couldn't open it at first. That's why you see two jars there. I was going to open my new jar because I couldn't open it, but I ended up figuring it out. So I just sprayed some water and took a baby wipe to get the cleaning process started. And then I brought the whole thing upstairs and cleaned off my mat in the sink. Now I have Ken Oliver Color Burst powder in ultramarine blue, and I think it's pronounced phthalo green. And I mixed the two of them together to make this really pretty teal color. And then I used my paintbrush to separate a couple of them out so that I can add some more pigment into two of the places and kind of just get some different shades going on. I didn't want it all entirely the same color. So you see what I did. I just dipped the file, the paper right into the mess of color that I had on my mat, and it made this beautiful watercolor pattern, I guess. And then when I take my paper towel, it sops up a good part of the pigment and leaves just a very light result. So even though it was very, very colorful at first, if I had left it like that to dry, it would have stayed quite vibrant, but I wanted it to have a much softer, subtle look, so I dabbed it off with my paper towel. And that is one of the things that I love about gesso, is that it keeps the pigment up on the surface of the paper and you have some time to play around with it, and the paper towel will take off almost all of it if you allow it to. So I am using my heat gun here to dry this item. I want it to be entirely dry before I start to use it. So I really like how it looks, actually. And you can see the difference there between the gesso. It has a very soft look on the gessoed side, and then the non-gessoed side has a very harsh, more vibrant look. And that's because the watercolor that landed on the back side sopped right into the paper as opposed to staying on the surface. Now I'm just taking a little bit of Mr. Huey's white and drizzling it over. I guess I'm dripping it, not quite drizzling it. And I keep that water spray bottle in my craft room for two purposes. I spray it at my cats when they approach my doll collection or anything else that could topple over. But I also really like using it with my baby wipes. My baby wipes are getting dried up, and I don't have to throw them away or anything. I can just keep on using them. I just add a spray of water and it revitalizes my baby wipes. So I kind of like that. It's plain water. I know it looks like there's a cleaning solution in it, but there isn't. Yeah, so then I just cleaned up my mat again with the water. And now I just headed on over to my sewing area of my scrap room. It's quite messy behind. You can see a whole stack of scrapbooking supplies between my little doll area and my sewing machine. That is my kit for National Scrapbooking Day. And so I am currently in the middle of a very messy scrap room, and that's just a tiny little part of the mess. So my thread did snap. There's something wrong with my machine. It's not the needle that's snapping my thread. It's something higher up is catching on the gold metallic thread these days, so I don't know what exactly the problem is, but anyhow, my thread is going to snap a couple of times during the process of this. And so I sewed a circle all the way around the outside perimeter of this cut file. And then my plan was to sew around every individual opening as well. However, I started to run out of both bobbin thread and top thread, and I do keep plain thread in my bobbin, but I'm completely out of white and any really pale light neutral colors. So I was hoping that I could get it all done, and I got most of it done. I strategically left a couple of places not stitched that I knew the photo would go, just so that I didn't run out of thread. Anyhow, I'm not going to show you all of this sewing process because it took a very, very, very long time. It probably took about half an hour for me to stitch all the way around all of these openings. So yeah, I won't share all of that. I don't usually cut out much of my process, but I won't share that with you. Just because it's quite long and repetitive. So I will say here that this layout is part of the National Scrapbooking Day crop that we have going on at MercyTiara's 27-day challenge Facebook group. And it's an exciting crop. So if you haven't stopped over yet today, if you're watching this on National Scrapbooking Day, which is May 7th, make sure you check out our Facebook group, which I will link at the end of this video, because there are prizes. We've got some really great scrapbooking companies who are really generous and sponsored us. And so it's really exciting and fun. And Moira O'Reilly has done a really great job of coming up with a fantastic lineup for us. So I'm just thinking about adding another layer to my photos. First, I'm just taking a scrap of paper because I want my photos to stay together as one unit. So I'm going to attach my photos to that scrap paper just like that, so that those two become one, and I can move them around and decide what I'm going to do. So now I'm going to use some pop dots, and I'm using Scrapbook Adhesives brand, which is a 3L brand of scrapbook adhesive pop dots. These are smaller than the Stampin' Up! Ones that you guys know I often use. I like these probably just as much as the Stampin' Up! Ones, but they are slightly thicker, so I don't typically use them together with the Stampin' Up! Ones. I like that there's a little space between each one so you can grab it pretty easily. And it is, like I said, a little bit taller. I'm also using some 3 3M foam tape that just allows me to fill some larger spaces in a little bit more of a cost and energy efficient way. So as I was saying, this layout is part of the National Scrapbooking Day crop. We're doing challenges, 6 challenges throughout the day, and this layout is for the Create Your Own Background challenge. So the challenge here was to create a homemade background, and so that's what this file is. The cut file mounted on the pattern paper, mounted on the background, and the mixed media on the cut file is my version of a homemade background. And I'm just filling in, basically I'm putting pop dots on all of the joints, so any place where 2 shapes come together, and then any long spans of straightness I'm also reinforcing with another pop dot. I want this whole file to stand out from the background paper, from that flower, that floral paper from Simple Stories, to create a really pretty shadow effect. Oh, there's my head getting in the way again. Sorry about that, guys. I just had to put my head right over it so that I could see that I was lining it up properly. So you might notice that I left a lot of those, well, I left all of the threads dangling, and there are quite a lot of them. It's quite messy looking, and I was going to trim it up, but I kind of thought it looked kind of cool with all those threads hanging all over the place. So I thought I'm going to go ahead and design my layout and leave the threads, and then I could always go along at the end and trim them all up and make it nice and neat looking. But I kind of thought that the threads, the shaggy threads looked really good with the mixed media, so I just left it. So I'm mounting these 2 photos on a piece of gray cardstock that came in the kit. Again, this is the Cherry Pie kit from Scraptastic. So that gives my photos a little bit of emphasis, and it kind of contains and gives them some contrast, I guess, with the background. I really like to frame a picture, especially a high contrast. Both of these were run through high contrast Instagram filters, and so they've got a really strong, bold black, well, a strong contrast is what I'm trying to say. So I want to make sure that I bring some black elements into my layout to make sure that they don't look too much like they don't belong on this otherwise soft layout. So that polka dotted paper is also from the Life in Color collection from Simple Stories. It also came in the kit. And then I'm going to use the back side of that floral pattern paper that I used for the giant circle. And I really like the pink, and it picks up on the pink that's in the floral. And I'm just going to kind of put these 2 layers. On one side, I have the layer of the black and white polka dots, and on the other side, I have the layer of the pink pattern paper. And they're both from the Simple Stories Life in Color collection, which is also what that floral is from, so they all go quite nicely together. You always know that a pattern plays nicely with other patterns when you use the same collection. So I'm just placing this, and I'm going to mess around with it a little bit because I want those 2 spots of white to show. It turns out only one of them is showing all that much, but I wanted to at least show one of them. And I wanted it slightly askew so that it wasn't completely lined up and looking all kind of nice, because the background is very askew. Like the patterns, the sewing is really messy, and the shapes are really kind of every which way. So I wanted the photo to be like that too. Now these are the plastic clips that come in I think they're just called clips, in the Simple Stories Life in Color collection. This one that says Good Stuff. And then those 2 tags are from Ellie's Studio from the die cuts that came in the kit. Every single thing on this layout came in the kit. So that there's that old-fashioned camera, and then the speech bubble that says Smile, Smile, Smile. There are 5 of those and 5 people, so I really wanted to use that on this layout. So I'm just placing these embellishments so that they form 2 clusters, one to the left and midway, and then one to the right and towards the bottom. And I'm trying to bring some red into each of those clusters, some pink into each of those clusters, and some gray into each of those clusters. So there's the pink heart. We'll provide the pink for that one. Oh, and also some black in each of those clusters. So again, I'm just kind of looking through what embellishments come in this kit. Oh, I love that yellow right there, but if I add that yellow Pink Fresh Studio rubber charm thing on the bottom by the camera, I have to add another piece of yellow up at the top, so I grabbed another yellow embellishment from that same set of rubber charms. And I'm going to put a flare badge in each of the clusters as well. The click on one and then the camera on the other, and a clip on each of them. The red one that says good stuff on the top one, and then the XOXO on the bottom. And that balances with the black, the shiny black in the clip. There's shiny black on the XOXO. And now I had this idea for the title, and I'm not entirely happy with the way that I executed it, but it is what it is. And I like the idea. I think I should have taken my time. I was actually not feeling very well this morning when I scrapbooked this. And I think I just kind of felt like I wanted to get it done quickly, which I shouldn't have done. Maybe I should have stopped scrapbooking and come back to it. But anyhow, it's not like I hate it or I don't really care all that much. But if you wanted this to look nicer, you could definitely make it look nicer than how I end up making it look. So I want to layer, my idea is that I've got those Pink Fresh Studio puffy letter stickers that say day, and then I wanted to layer the word trip over top of it. But boy, those letters are just very, very tiny. And so I'm going to cut my Stampin' Up! Dimensionals. I need to pop them up because the puffy yellow stickers are tall, like they have dimension to them, and these black ones do not. So in order for them to dangle off the bottom of the word day, I have to put something underneath of it to hold it up. So the dimensional adhesive is the thing, but cutting it thin enough that it looks okay is a bit of a challenge. And then positioning those little tiny LE Studio black letter stickers in such a way that I keep picking them up and putting them back down. And in the process of doing that, I bent some of them and I ended up replacing the T because it was so bent looking that it just didn't look nice anymore. But they all don't look all that great. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I guess it depends on how close attention you pay to details. Personally, I don't love the look of this title, but I think that when you're looking at it within the context of a scrapbook with lots of pages in it, it's going to be one of 20 or 30 layouts that a person is looking at when they flip through the album. Are they really going to notice that the letters are a little bit banged up on the word trip? I don't know. I don't think so, but maybe. When I'm looking at it, I know I'll notice, but maybe other people won't. So the last step is to put a tiny, tiny, tiny piece of foam, and I have to cut up those pieces of foam. And I couldn't find my little scissors because I had just come back from a crop and I didn't fully unpack, and so my room is a bit of a mess right now. So that made it a little bit harder. Maybe it would have been easier and I might have taken my time a little bit more if I had the proper scissors. But anyhow, also I'm going to do something with the tags on this that I never do, which is I'm going to leave them plain. I'm not putting any reinforcers on them, and I'm also not putting any string in them. The reason I'm not putting string in them is that I thought it would just detract from the layout as opposed to adding to the layout. There's a lot of string and thread dangling everywhere on this layout, so I just felt like more dangly stuff is not necessarily going to add anything to this page. So I just left the tags empty, the gaping empty holes that I usually say I don't like. It just goes to show that you can break any rule that you have, whether it's your own or someone else's. Feel free to break rules because that makes scrapbooking fun and enjoyable. Also, maybe it was because I was sick and I was feeling like, ugh, I don't want to do too much more. I don't know. I kind of thought if it really annoys me, I could always add string afterwards, but I like it. It looks okay the way it is. So what I'm doing now is I'm basically just going back to my 2 clusters and I'm putting adhesive on all the parts and making the things pop up that need to pop up. So first I started with that camera and the yellow thing. I know it looks green in this light. I don't know. Otherwise this lighting is very true to color, but it's yellow, it's not green. And I'm going to put that XOXO right there and the flare badge. And because that flare badge is landing in between, like right in one of the holes of the background, I put an extra pop dot on the back of it just to hold it up so that it stayed at the right height. And I'm thinking I need something red over here because there's that red good stuff up in the other. And so these acrylic pieces came in the kit and I thought they looked really cute and they coordinate quite nicely with the floral pattern in the background. So I'm going to use those as my little bit of red. I'm using some Tombow Mono Multi adhesive here, and I'm putting the red one because it's the one that means the most, because it's the whole reason I'm putting these 3 things on here. I'm putting it in a high contrast place, so I'm putting it on that light gray background so that you can definitely see it. And then the blue and the yellow one I'm putting in a less obvious place because they're landing on top of they're landing on top of things that are darker, so they're a little bit less easily noticed. I thought about putting pop dots in the middle of those flowers, but I really didn't like the look very much. So the tea was bothering, though everything about Trip it was bothering me, but the tea in particular was bothering me. So I just cut another little tiny bit of adhesive foam to try again with that. The foam was showing a little bit too much. So let's try that one again. It's going to look a little bit better like that than it was before. There we go. And so I'm just having a look at it and trying to decide if that's everything that I need. And then I remembered I need to put the word Lunenburg on here so that I remember where it's at. And a really nice place to put the place is right on the like on the street. It's not a cobblestone street, but it's like a gray street. The word is going to be visible, but it's not going to be really obvious or high contrast or anything to grab your attention. So here are the close-ups. I didn't show the close-ups like I usually do in video, so you'll have to check out these photos. And be sure, especially if it's National Scrapbooking Day when you're watching this, be sure to check out our crop or even the day after, because the deadline for submitting your work for the challenges is on the Sunday, which is the day after National Scrapbooking Day. So take care and have a really great scrappy week.